hang on, I have to share my screen.
So we can go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Yeah, however official that is.
Are we recording?
She's recording, yeah, okay.
All right, at 4:38, we'll call the meeting to order. And because we don't have a quorum right now, we're not going to take things on the agenda as they're listed. We're going to start with Pete, who's going to give us some statistics.
Did you get them, Karen? Yeah. Sure we got that. Okay, so everyone should know that this is annual report time. Things are due by February 15th. This goes to the state required form that is due March 1st. We never make March 1st. We are a county, unlike most of them in the state. We have a lot of licensees and a lot of reporting to do, so we always get an extension until April 1st. So my goal is to have the plan ready for the board's approval next Wednesday. So these are some of the early statistics that I have completed. And the first one is just basically talking about our curbside performance. And I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can see it. So in the chart, you'll see that we have 6 curbside haulers. This is set up to be the tons collected in garbage carts, the tons collected in recycle bins, and the tons collected in yard waste, basically curbside services. So these are residential properties. And then it gives the rate, curbside rate for recycling and yard waste, and then a full curbside rate. You'll see haulers 1 through 6, they're private haulers. You'll see Metro government, which is Metro DPW, and then you will see the full countywide curbside rate. And below that, you'll see a history of the rates. So just kind of get an idea of where we're going. I don't know that there's really any big surprises here. We stayed pretty much the same from 2003, but we're still on the low end of recovery when it comes to how we're performing. So overall, 281,985 tons of trash was picked up at the curbside in Louisville Metro. We recycled through single stream 26,920 tons. And we collected 26,424 tons of yard waste. The yard waste was actually up quite a bit last year, just due to the number of storms and tree debris that was out there. So we did go up on that. Otherwise, I think that we're still down, continuing to trend down, which is not the best. So you can see the history. 2015, we were close to 18%. And today we are sitting right at 16%. I don't know what we do with this and why we're trending downwards, but it's something that us keep in mind when we're doing programs trying to get people to recycle. Why are they not recycling? Why do we have fewer tons? So it's something for us to keep in mind. This next slide.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was in charge of that.
The next slide is something that I started doing last year, and it's basically doing the same thing as I do with residential properties for roll-off businesses. So you'll see all haulers, 970,000 tons, 480,000 of that was MSW. I break out MSW contents of a structure because that's a subset of haulers that are running around in the little 10-yard dumpsters or trailers. You can see what they do. You can see this beneficial use. That could be concrete, rubble, things like that could be used in road projects or fill projects. And then the recycling and compost that is hauled in dumpsters. So Overall, we're sitting at 20.5% of that material being recycled and 39% being composted, or not composted, beneficially used. These are huge numbers, and I know that they're kind of low in what they're capturing, but these are really kind of the things that drive a lot of our overall diversion number from the curbside to the overall rate, which I'll get to in just a minute. The next one is the commercial front load dumpsters. These are basically businesses, apartment complexes, schools, institutions and industry that are picked up in the front load dumpsters where they pull up, stick the forks through, dump it in the truck, hit it back down, and they're gone. And you can see how they've done there, 414,000 tons total, about 400,000 MSW, 18,000 recycling. So really, I was kind of disappointed in the performance there. It just means that we have a whole lot of work to do when it comes to those types of businesses that are on front load services. The next one. This is actually the kind of the official rate that we follow. And I have these actually backwards. The one at the bottom should be up the top. But we have a target rate of 27%. We've had that for quite some time, which means this is residential and commercial. This is what you pick up at the curb. This is what is dropped off at recycling centers. It's what's dropped off at recyclers that maybe are out there collecting used motor oil and things like that are according to the Municipal Waste and Tracking Association, this is the way you should track it. So you can see what we're doing there. We're actually this year and last year we're up at 27.8, but we went down pretty low at one point, and so we're trying to catch up. So we're finally back up to 27%, which is great. The bottom one is a rolling average. We did that because you can get wide swings from year to year in commodity values, particularly when it comes to metals, and that sometimes affected the rate. So it just kind of smoothed it out. So you can see right now we're at 27%, but if you look at how we did in 2024, we're at 27.8. So we're tending the trend back up a little bit. The next one is the overall diversion rate. This is where those roll off and all of the beneficial use comes into play. So you add those in, and you can see right now we're sitting at 49.1%, which is you're one too far.
I'm too far.
You were at one too
I'm
far.
glad, because as you were just talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's making sense.
Okay, so the bottom one there is
a
that-
while.
Oh,
I know, sorry.
I'm looking at mine because I can't see that.
Sorry about that.
So we're looking at 49.1% as an overall diversion rate. That includes the construction and demolition debris. We have a 90% rate there that would be the goal. That's considered zero waste, but our true measure was one that was adopted probably 2018, which is 90% by 90% by 42, which we're not going to get 42. But it means we want to capture 90% of divertible material. We want 90% of the people to be participating in recycling programs. So we're not quite there. So we're at 49%. We dropped from 58. You can see the numbers there. We've been at 52, 50, 50, 52, thereabouts. And 2024, we dropped to 42.4, a major drop. A lot of that had to do with one of the sites that was using a lot of material as beneficial use no longer is operating in that capacity. So a lot of that material is going to disposal. So it really did drop us off pretty big.
What material is that?
Basically, it's going to be construction and demolition debris. They're trying to make it to where they can process that in a material recovery facility, but it's been a slow process. And, obviously, I think we would all love to have a construction and demolition true construction demolition material processing facility here that could pull it out like a West Rock or a Rumpke material recovery facility, but we just don't have it. Some of that has to do with end markets for the material that you're gonna collect. And if you don't have end markets, it doesn't do you any good to collect it. Then you just have a big pile of stuff sitting someplace. And another big part of it is the lack of shingles going into asphalt. We lost that a couple of years ago. The Department of Transportation doesn't put it in their specs anymore. There was a vendor that put too much shingles into the asphalt for them, and the road started to crumble. And when you're talking about replacing a road that's crumbled, it's extremely expensive. So you can see why they would be a little bit gun shy. We've not been able to get them back. Then the last one is the curbside participation and availability rates. I call this more an availability rate more than anything because really there's a lot of people in home rule cities and in the urban services district that have this service that choose not to participate. So it's extremely difficult to measure it as a participation rate. So the one that I have that is best on the participation rate is going to be the household with garbage service. We're sitting at 97.3%.
Are we on the
Yeah,
same
you need
screen?
another screen.
Trying to get Sarah Lynn to join this call.
Okay. So right now we're sitting at 97.3. That's up from 96.7. That was more from a perspective of when Metro switched to Rubicon, we found that there are a lot of properties getting services that are not counted in our number because they're not eligible for Metro services. They are in apartment complexes that have 9 or more units, but they're small enough that they have a bunch of carts out there that get picked up. So there's quite a few of those that are out there. Eventually we'll get that fixed, but it was enlightening to us when we started using a little bit of technology to actually see what was going on. So what does that mean, 97.3%? That means that approximately 7,660 residents within Jefferson County don't have garbage service.
Really?
Yes. So when you consider that we're talking about, let me see. There is 281,499 occupied households. So 7,000, I mean, it's a big number.
It is.
And it's almost entirely in subscription area. Because if you're under contract or you're in the urban services district, you got it, right? So it's all in subscription area. So what happens to that material? Where is it going? It's probably going in your neighbor's car, or it's piling up in the garage somewhere, which we get calls about, and the rats and stuff like that. So you got that issue that we're dealing with. It ends up on the curb, or in the gully, or in the park, or something like that. So it's primarily subscription areas that's happening.
Couldn't some of it be unoccupied buildings?
No, we take, and of course, always take these numbers with a grain of salt, because what we utilize is census data that is updated annually, and it will give us a percentage of occupied versus unoccupied. So we're sitting at 92% occupancy right now, according to the last week.
But
So-
my understanding is that the updates are projections more than they are counts.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a perfect science. So plus or minus, I couldn't even give you a plus or minus on this, but I think that it's pretty certain, I'm pretty certain, just based upon some of the stuff that we do as far as enforcement goes, that there's quite a few people out there that don't have services. Primarily Southwest Jefferson County. It's gotten much worse. Well, I'm not gonna say much worse. I haven't pulled the statistics for that yet, but when you look at reports of illegal dumping, it is certainly increasing in the Southwest. So it's just, it is what it is. That is the statistics that I have. I hope to continue to build out like on illegal dumping and those types of things. I typically don't put those in there, but I am in the process of completing the form, getting everything in. And then hopefully next week I'll be able to do a much better presentation that will include the amount of litter that was collected in bags and tons, how many miles was cleaned, how much money we spent on litter collection. It will include all the education materials that and activities that took place throughout the year. It will include, oh shoot. Anyway, it'll be a lot bigger report and you'll be able to see a little bit better. But so tune in next week and maybe you'll see a little bit more. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Did I stall long enough to get another person?
Greg is on the call,
Awesome.
and I can see his face, but Greg, I'm sorry, you're gonna have, as long as you can hear us, you're good. But you'll have to use the chat to communicate. And he gave me a thumbs up. This is our first hybrid meeting, but apparently we're experts now, so we can just go with it, right? Okay,
So we have a quorum?
and Sarah Lynn's on here now
Oh,
too.
very good.
If they can in any way be visual, is what they
Greg
need to be.
is, Sarah Lynn, if you can be visible, that would be great. There she
There she
is, yay.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I don't think we can have audio for you guys, so just use the chat if possible. Unless, we just got worried because it was doing its weird echoey thing whenever we have any audio on, but I could
Well,
always
and
test
for
it.
voting, we can raise our hands.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, thank you all for jumping on. So Sandra, we can have more of an official opening.
Well, no, we'll just go ahead with the next thing. Now that you're here, has everybody had a chance to read the minutes that came out with our agenda? And if yes, would anyone like to move approval?
I'll move.
Thank you. Samita moved. Is there a second? Second, Marie. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Do we have enough? We do. We've got 8. All right, thank you. Anybody opposed? I don't see any opposing. All right, the minutes then pass unanimously. The next thing on the agenda is the 109 board update.
Just a brief update. We continue to work with the cost of services study. We have not gotten enough data in a certain sector for us to be able to say, feel good about the data in total. So we're still continuing to work on that. We're also working on the urban services district cost of services right now to look into that. So bringing in some people from OMB. So that's where that's at. We're also going to be doing a little bit more as far as waste hauler. Well, let me say this. We have switched to a field trip to a more of a yearly stipend. They're going to work on doing multiple campaigns throughout the year instead of us having just a Keystone campaign once a year. So we're going to have a lot of mini campaigns in one Keystone campaign, hopefully focusing the first one on countywide secure your load because of the roadways are so dirty. So we're working on that and coming up with a calendar, working with the education team to do that. So other than that, I don't have much of an update for the 109 board.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? All right, old business is the Waste District application guidelines that relate to grants.
Yes, that's me. I was gonna see if I could at least, okay, so we're gonna skip through that. Okay, so if you recall, I'm not gonna stay on this for very long, and Sarah Lynn, we are muting one of these laptops, so hopefully if you had an echo, that's fixing it. And Diana is helping me watch the chat. Okay, so I reported last month all about how this eCivis platform works. It's new to Metro, but they've been able to utilize it, and they already have some learnings they've just learned certain things about the application. And there, Susan Durham is the name of the staff person who is over all of this. She's super, super helpful, and she got on a call with me today. We have a test application, so I have a lot to share with you, but just bear with me because I'm not an expert at this platform yet, and I hope I have all my windows open, and I'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to remind the process that there is building the solicitation, and that is basically the putting it out there that you have a grant that you're offering or grants. And then you build the application for people to be able to click on and actually apply. And then you build the review process, and that's for the internal team that's going to score. And it's all done through this platform called eCivis, which I actually think they might have changed the name, but I don't know. You might see it on a screen.
Karen, just to remind everybody where this came from was we had a company come in wanting us to donate some $5,000 for a program. And part of our concern turned into, well, how do we do this? And so it's turned into something bigger where we have decided that, if we set aside $50,000 and allow people to make application for things that we would fit into our mission and what would fit into the 5-year solid waste management plan and what we're trying to accomplish, then it would be well worth it for us to develop this process. A little bit more complicated than what we really thought. So that's where this is coming from, and that's what Karen's put a lot of work into is coming up with this process. So just for anybody that didn't know, that's where it comes from and what we're trying to do.
Okay, I'm hoping I had 2 Chrome windows open. Oh, good. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay. So sorry, it's like really weird to be working on a giant TV. Okay, so this platform, so this is, we've actually made a test application. So the document that we did not have ready last month, but I emailed to everyone. Hopefully you actually looked at it. I never received any feedback, so it's in here as if it is perfect. And it was used to create all of this. So this is the solicitation, and it is still in their test training part, but we can basically just still edit it a little bit and also duplicate it into the real deal when we're ready. Of course, we won't do that till the board approves everything, but I wanted to be able to see it, how it would look, so you all can really know what was going on. And I also have a link if anyone wants to, within the next week or whatever, like wants the link to this solicitation, you can hit that apply button. You just have to make an account through eCivis, and you can just pretend to apply for the grant so that you can follow the process and know if you like the way it looks or if something doesn't seem right. So this part that is the summary here is straight from those guidelines that I emailed, but just an introduction about the waste district. There's a link to the 5-year plan. Then there's a list of the themes within the plan, and the purpose of these grants. And basically by the end saying, if what you're doing doesn't align with this, then you're not going to be eligible for our grants.
But my only concern with this is the number of words. There's a lot. And
if the board was more targeted in what they were going to issue the grant for, do we have the capacity to go in and make a more
Mhm.
targeted thing?
Yes. Right, if the board has very specific wants and if someone had money, maybe they would do it, then it would be more like asking more specifically. And I will say, we haven't gotten very far, but eventually when you make the solicitation, there is a section for goals. And if every application has the exact same goal, you can put that there. But if every application does not have the exact same goal, or you don't have a goal that you want everybody to hit, then you just leave it blank. And so far, that is left blank.
I guess my concern is that dealing with it in a global way like this, we end up with apples, oranges, and pears. I mean, somebody could come in and they could say, I'm going to do this, and then some. And there's no competition in being more effective in making your statistics better.
Yeah, I think that we had a lot of discussion about this early. There was the discussion about, do you make it very specific? And then you have less innovation, or be very specific, and that's what you want. But, and we also talked about having multiple different ones. So I'm not sure that I thought we settled on more broad.
I
To
think
let
this is
people
a good
innovate.
beginning, but I
Yeah.
can see over time that it might change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
And I think we had talked about maybe keeping it broader in the first year so that we kind of get a sense of what types of applications we receive and then can change it from there.
Okay,
I know part of that being a lot of words on the page, I don't disagree. Some of it is directly from our mission statement, which, would love to shorten up a little bit.
okay, so anybody who's applying for a grant or is looking for money, I think they're gonna be willing to at least figure out if it's worth their while to fill this out. But the eligibility tab, these are just check boxes in that solicitation. So these are the ones I checked off. If you choose other, you have to say who you want to put there. So I don't have an other one because I didn't know if anybody was missing, but that's possible. And then the notes about it, and there is a question here I wanted to get your all's feedback on for sure. So obviously the primary goal of their project has to align with the district and the plan. They have to be in Jefferson County, but oh, you know what? I edited this and it's not showing up, so I don't know if I didn't refresh it or not. Anyway, there was a fifth one that said that they needed to have been actively, I don't know, not in business, but
Registered
for
for
2 years. Yeah, and Susan suggested 2 years as a good starting point, just because if you're gonna give someone money and they've only been around for 6 months, are they even gonna make it the first year? So, I did edit that, and you might see it when I show you the other side, but,
I think we talked about if it was a lower amount, we wouldn't have such strict requirements as 2 years.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was a much bigger
Right.
amount, we would have.
so that can certainly be edited. There's only one thing that cannot be edited, is if people can apply for more than one grant in the same grant cycle. And I just assumed if it's a business or an organization that they should just have one project
Yeah.
and not two. So I made that as a,
They can't have all their money, is that what you're
Right.
saying?
okay, houses of worship, I could add as an other. Thanks, Sarah Lynn.
Did we decide they didn't have to be a nonprofit, did they?
No.
No.
What
But
about,
houses of worship
Are they
It-
nonprofits?
Some of them are
Some of them
nonprofit.
are, yeah,
what about like HOAs or resident associations?
that's what I do.
Here's one of the things that I'm concerned about. If it just impacts a certain number of residents, it may not qualify as, a proper use of funds. In other words, for you to spend government money, it has to be for the good of all. And if you make it a very narrow focus on who it's going to impact, I'm not sure that that would qualify.
Well, I was gonna say, if they framed it as kind of like a pilot, that we'd start with this area, but then we, learn from it and it could be scalable, then I think that might still be
That's true,
qualified.
especially because we're not talking about large amounts of money.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think that it would depend upon how they roll it, as to whether or not that they would do it. But again, going back to the innovation part of this, I think that's a really good point.
Okay.
So you're gonna
So
add religious?
HOAs and houses of worship.
I don't think it should be houses.
Oh, okay.
Could it be religious
places,
institutions?
places. of-
Well, it's not the building,
Oh, right,
is where I'm,
like faith-based organizations or something.
that would be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you?
Do you have to have a Metro Revenue Commission number, or just good standing, I'll apply for it when I get that?
I think that you would have to have some kind of,
Yeah, that's a procurement requirement.
yeah.
Anyone receiving funding should
Should you
have
think
that.
of an example of
Church, HOA,
when,
wouldn't have a revenue commission?
Well, so we have a different program, and typically, there's a lot of people that apply for funding that don't have it, and we just ask them to register. It's a very simple process, especially if they're a
Yeah.
small organization.
Well, good standing doesn't mean you don't have one, it just means
Right,
you're not in
exactly.
bad.
So
Yeah.
you, so
Yeah.
you-
If you're not bad,
you
yeah.
would advise that sentence, so. The sentence wouldn't require it in advance.
but it would require you to be in good standing.
Or to be registered, I think is kind of like,
Qualified to do business and is in good standing. I mean, this is the stuff that
It's
can
pretty
be
short.
edited.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just thinking of my HOA would not have this.
That's true.
And
But I do think that if someone is wanting to get money from us,
I was gonna say,
it tells us that at least they're serious.
don't they get money from someone?
No, not necessarily.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Carl?
So, so when we do good standing, it's based on the state, so the Secretary of State, and they publish whether a company's in good standing. So we just use that as our model, and I'm not sure, so I guess if you have to define what the good standing is.
I think
With-
with revenue commission, it's just registration. There's no good standing.
No, I'm not, if there's a connection between the Revenue Commission and the Secretary of State, we always check Secretary of State when we're licensing people. So it's really a simple process to check it. And it's really not that big of a process to even register for, to be registered with the Secretary of State. So I don't know. I think at least the Revenue Commission,
Well, instead of naming them, what if you did something broader? And then depending on who did what and came in, we could deal with the specifics.
I think OMB would have to tell us if there's specific requirements on that. I don't know if that's up to us. I think they would just. have to
Because I
decide.
think she's right.
I think you're
For
right.
example, an HOA or a church is not necessarily gonna have that. I think if we just ask.
Mhm.
At some point, Corey asked, I was going to ask why individuals couldn't apply. And then Sarah Lynn said, I think it's important that we generate headlines for successes, not abuse of public funds, so I'd avoid allowing unincorporated entities to apply.
And on the HOAs too, maybe we just wanna say resident associations, cause it could be like a tenants association as well, or like a renters association.
So then there's this part about financials, which I also had deleted that. Again, I don't want to hit the refresh button because I'm afraid it'll like make me log in or do something weird, but, so it has eligible grant expenses. This is all from those guidelines I sent, so don't tell me if you want anything changed, because you had till March 7th to do so. No, just kidding. And then ineligible grant expenses. And then this was my question though, and right now there's, no minimum or maximum. It will be very clear how much money the board approves to even give. But I don't think it's decided, and maybe, the board really has to be the one. I think it's been in trouble because we can't decide. But I kind of use 50,000 as an example of an amount,
But if
so.
they're giving only 50,000 for the year, I don't know, I think this is anticipating something that just hasn't begun to happen yet.
Right, I was gonna delete the budget levels part.
That would, I think, I agree with you.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, we can either leave it as up to us on how we do it, or you could literally say you want to give away 5 pots of money.
But I think
Or-
that's their choice. And I think also they can decide what they want done with that,
Right,
so.
So
yeah.
you get 10 people that apply, and you got 9 that are so-so, and 1 that has a really great thing. You don't want to put yourself in a box. I would rather throw it all at the one good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
well, and what they will know at the get-go is how much money is available. So if you knew you had, say, 100,000 to give, but you wanted to give it to at least 2 different, like 50,000 here and 50,000 there, then you would want to say that the maximum amount received is 50,000. So whatever that-
Except his point is that why would you say that in advance?
Right.
When one's mediocre and the other's terrific.
Right, so for now, probably, especially since it's the first go around, whatever the board decides they're willing to give would be the maximum. I think Susan, just from experience, was like, people are gonna ask for all of it, like, they're not
Yeah,
gonna.
Sure they are,
Yeah.
but the board doesn't have to do it.
No,
But maybe the ranges would be helpful to say, or maybe like a minimum would be helpful so people can think about what category they fall in, because I do think we'd have a lot of people just applying for the maximum amount.
I do think that putting a minimum in there kind of indicates that there's multiple grants to be had without really saying and putting categories in there. It kind of leaves a little bit of their imagination. So I like the fact of including a minimum. Plus, you don't want somebody to apply for $50 grant.
Yeah.
Corey, did you read Corey's comments in there? She
uh,
said, what if somebody has an $11,000 idea?
right, up to 25,000 and up to 50,000, she said, someone might have an $11,000 idea. Sarah Lynn says, my organization doesn't apply for grants of less than a certain amount, which is common in the nonprofit world. So she thinks we should just say the maximum available. But I do kind of feel like it might be more up to the board on how they want.
Yeah,
it.
and
When
I
it comes to
can
money.
appreciate the fact that until we've got a track record.
Yeah.
We don't have an answer to all these questions.
Right. It's
And
hard.
I have seen other grantors put in just disclaimer language saying that the grantor reserves the right to do 1 award or multiple awards or no awards, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's excellent.
That's a good
And could
point.
be stated right off in the beginning.
It's always good to plagiarize.
Yes, especially if it's good.
Okay.
I
And
didn't see that
then,
comment.
I know there was maximum for grantee. I'll make to be clarified after board approval.
having a maximum per grantee, possibly clarified after board approval, but I think that's gonna have to, this part of it, if we can get everything else just to look good, then this could be a discussion based on how much money they want to provide. And then contact basically Susan for help with eService stuff, and then me as the program. And then there's files that you can go ahead and look at the guidelines, which would be edited based on things we've decided, and the 5-year solid waste plan. So again, this is the solicitation. So someone might read this and be like, oh, it's not for me, and just go on with their day. Or they hit this apply button, and that's when you get, which I have already logged in. This is my little test login email address, and I've already done this, looked at it through here. So because I've kind of started it already, it shows up here. But when someone hits that apply button, it triggered me to make an account first, and then it shows up in there. So Because they could be applying for multiples and they would all be listed there. So at that point, they click on it. And it shows, for me, not started, because I've only looked at it. You can add team members if you want multiple people on your team to be able to fill this out. And so basically, these are some instructions, and there's really nothing here, but this is where you could add in more instruction if you felt like you needed it, but this is sort of like the bucket that all of these things sit in. So that's all it's really saying is, okay, this is the application part, and here's all the things you have to do. The core information is your basic information like your name, your employer identification number, address.
That EIN number, is that a required,
Mhm.
is that required? Does everybody have an EIN number?
If you're an LLC,
If,
taxpayer,
if,
Or you
we're also
want
talking about people
I think-
potentially,
or social security.
Or you asking all your social.
we don't want social security.
Don't we
That's
all
what a
have one
W-9
even through
does.
our taxes?
Yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
right.
that's right.
You just take.
Okay,
So any business will have one,
I got you.
Yeah.
unless they don't file taxes.
Okay, and so then there's all these representatives, project representatives, team members, and this can be, you can remove if it's too much, too many people or whatever, that can be edited. I'm going through it on the user side, although I do have the other side as well, but I'm not very good at it yet because it's the first day I've ever been on here. But this is the application form. And I have the ability to like add in, edit this stuff, but you have to obviously have a project description.
Is this the stuff that the board will look at to determine whether or not to give somebody a?
Yeah, that,
Okay.
I have a different section for being able to see that. But yes, everything they type in here is going to then be put into that evaluation section. So whoever we choose to be on the evaluation team, it won't be the whole board, but you know, whoever. So then they have put in their start date, end date, project budget, how much they're requesting, primary goals, describe how the project aligns with the mission and the 5-year plan, outcomes. So it's basically all of those things that were listed in the guidelines, just kind of transformed into blanks to fill in, questions to fill in. So that's why I would like at least a few people to like get this link, make a little account and act like you're filling it out, just so you know if something just seems off.
Even if you just put gibberish.
Yeah, you don't really have to have a project. So it just keeps going on about all the things, funding, evaluation, metrics, reporting. So that's the big application. And then this is a recommendation based on, and actually required based on their experience, because people were filling this out. Oh, and you might see it oh no, that actually edited, that's weird. Anyway, people were submitting applications without having done everything. And she said it got controversial about letting people go back and do the things they forgot to do. So they added this in, and she said it'll be required for all grants to have an application checklist. So you basically have to say, I have provided this, I have provided this. So the only thing in here, goals that you ignore. Budget is the only other thing, and she did this. She looked at everything that we have, and she said basically, you don't do anything here, but you can type in your money, and it'll eventually come up here for your total costs or whatever. So that's basically where you're gonna put in your budget. So that's another part to kind of look at a little bit closer.
This seems easier than the ones that I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, many of the grants that we applied for in the past, if it wasn't complete, you were sent a letter saying your application wasn't
Yeah.
complete, you didn't get a chance to
Yeah.
come back and correct it.
Yeah. And then the budget narrative is basically just sort of a narrative about what you're doing up here. But, so that's the budget. So that has to be done a little bit different. Shoot, I can't see.
Sarah said, Sarah Lynn said, can we use real projects? I expect to pitch to client nonprofits, for example, the mattress recycling project.
Like to test?
Yeah, when we try the software. That's what she said.
Probably not, because it could be seen as, I don't know, giving them some kind of practice or edge if they.
Yeah, I'd rather us not see it, maybe. Or, you know, like,
Someone who's applying, maybe it might be seen as a conflict, so.
okay. And then goals, like I said, is not really needed. So when you click on that, it says this form is not used for this application. She said people would keep getting really confused. But you cannot physically get rid of it off of here. So that's why you just put in a little something that says this is not used. So that's it on the application side. So, sorry, I can't see my tabs. Nope. Okay, let me see. All right. So on this side of things, this is my side as a person who has inputted all of this information. See where it says 50,000, that's just like, we just made that up and put that in there. Okay, so if I click on it, that's not what I want. Oh, here we go. So I can edit that solicitation. We knew we made some adjustments, so I can edit that. I can edit the application. Obviously, you wouldn't do that when an application has actually been posted, like ours has, but since it's a test, you physically can, but,
So somebody can go back in and actually edit after a due date?
no, once a person, no, not, I'm talking about me, like, I'm looking
Okay.
at the application, not as a person who wants the money, as a person who's giving the money. So, since it's a test, I'm actually going ahead and I might make some edits before I send you all the link, just so you all see more of what we've already discussed. Okay. Sorry, I don't understand all these things yet. So, that's not what I want to see. You can preview the application. I guess I won't try to. Well, I didn't want to do that, but that's where I didn't understand. So Susan started a test application. That's mine. That is not really started. So I guess as the user, I can see that. Right now, we only have mine and Pete's names as the reviewers, but we would add in whoever,
Anybody that wants to put it in,
yeah, if you want to
Test.
review.
we want them to be able to review it as well, because we need people to score.
Okay, I think this is the part I was trying to get to. So this is where I would edit things. I think, yeah. Okay, so this is how it looks from the side of someone who is creating this application. Thankfully, Susan did this for me, but now I can just get in here and change things up if I want to, by hitting this edit button. And then, of course, it's like, you already published this, why are you editing it? But yes, it's okay.
So it's just basically creating what we just viewed.
Yeah, this is what, it's like the back office, us looking at it. So, anyway, I wanted you to see the, oh, this is what I wanted you to see, the evaluation stage.
Yes.
So we can add in more instructions here, it just says to complete it right now. And what she did, so this is another thing to be sure that this is what we agree on. They're gonna, so this side is the application. So you as a reviewer would just see someone's application here. And then over here, this is where you would be scoring. So this is what was in that guidelines that everyone agreed looked really good. There were 3 sections: project narrative and strategy, community impact, sustainability and partnerships, and financial information and evaluation. And with a possible total score of 100, divided into 40 points, 35, and 25 for those 3 categories. So there's the scoring rubric that you would then be able to see. And then these are the questions that kind of help guide you in knowing how to score each section. And
Where
it's
do the answers go?
right here. She said you can type in a number and there will also be like a, like bring it up and down.
But how do you know it's the answer to question number 3, for example?
Well, this one is well, no, you don't type in the answers to those questions. These are the questions that you kind of use to guide your scoring. So as you're looking at, sorry, when I scroll that goes away, but you have the whole application here. So you're looking at the narrative, the description, just the whole general thing, and you ask yourself, okay, does it align with the mission? Is it clear? Sustainability goals, methods, and so 40 points are given, and that's the highest of them. If it meets all of that and you think it's spectacular and there's nothing in there that would make you do a lower score than 40.
I
That's
thought
one is-
it was 100.
No, this is there's 3 sections.
Okay,
So-
but where do I put the score for one section?
Project narrative and
Okay.
strategy score would go in this box.
So
And
there are
then you would
3 of those
enter
boxes.
comments. I just didn't get
Okay.
down to it yet. So then you would enter the comments explaining why you scored the way you did. And then the second section is community impact, sustainability and partnerships for a total of 35 points. And here's some questions to help guide your
It looks like there should
score.
be a score for each one of those
Yeah, it
sets.
does it easier for the person.
Yeah, Susan did this for me. I think she was making it simple and not too much, but, we can edit this if it's confusing to have the number or something, we can edit it,
I
but
think that it's important to have what should be considered so that you can get consistency in what people are looking at.
It'd be interesting to have a score on each of those 6, but then it makes it more cumbersome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, so you would have to decide on a score between 0 and 35, enter some comments, and then lastly, the financial and evaluation part is 25 points. And it's the same thing where you just read through some of these questions and decide on your score and enter the comments. So that's what it would look like for an evaluator. We're in the back part of it, so it looks a little different, but ideally.
Do we know that ACIBIS doesn't sell any information that they can get from this?
I mean, I don't have a document in writing that says that, but I'm
Have
sure we
we
can
ever
ask. I can ask Susan.
I don't think that you can sell because it's part of a government portal, at least I think. But I think it's a good question, especially if we're gonna have information on here that can be sensitive to some, to make sure that the security side of things are good. It's a really good
Not
point.
just selling, but the security side too.
Yes.
Yeah, good point.
And I could, you can't hardly send an email in Metro without security
Yeah,
checking it, so.
yeah,
I would say
to
IT
get
probably
this through
calculated
IT,
it, yes. Yeah.
it's probably fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so any other thoughts on this? I'm sorry, it's really bad to have your head like this, right, Mike? A
little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't get my comments in, but I did.
Oh, you
Yeah,
have some
have a few
comments. Okay,
thoughts.
okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I was looking at it earlier today, so I was late. But, so one was, I know that we've outlined the goals from the 5-year solid waste management plan, but I'm wondering if it might be a bit cumbersome to expect the applicants to read it or feel like they have to be an expert on it. So I wonder if we can simplify, like we can still link the plan, but essentially just say, we just want projects that help reduce or divert waste and just simplify it that way. And maybe that'll help them kind of also be more innovative rather than make it too specific.
I think it's a very good point. I think that we could, we guide people in what is actually somewhat in the plan in some categories, maybe not such the detail. If you want the detail, click here.
Yeah.
That's what I would like.
And then the other one was under eligibility. I think that list is good of, eligible expenses and ineligible expenses.
Mhm.
It might be good to just caveat that with, this is a non-exhaustive list or just examples or something, because we might not be thinking about some activity that's a good idea, and that's not on the
Right.
list.
Only thing to check on that is when you have access to the application on the budget form, Susan basically used one that is already in existence, and she was like, I'm pretty sure based on what I read, it's going to have all the fields you would need. But just to match, to kind of think about.
So
some
why don't you
projects.
just put an other? In fact, wasn't there an other at the end of it?
There may have been, I don't
Mhm.
know. And if that's the case, it wouldn't matter anyway, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's like a template that's
Mhm.
already made. And
Mhm.
it's like, there's construction ones and non-construction ones or something, and she looked at it and chose whatever's called non-construction, but,
Could be like other expense for consideration.
Yeah. and-
Doesn't mean that you're gonna approve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last one was, I think in the evaluation criteria, we have, the financial information that's kind of close to this, but I think just, organizational or team experience might be a good one. That's something we use on a lot of our RFPs at Bonfire, and it's just a helpful one because it just gives them an opportunity to talk about who's part of the organization, who's gonna be actually doing this work, and do they have experience and this.
so is that part, is that a question in the application, you're saying, or
That
part
would-
of the review?
I think it would have to be both. I think we'd have to make sure that they have a space to describe that, but then also put it in the scoring section. And maybe it can be part of the financial information, maybe it's just organizational experience and financial.
Okay.
Or something, because it just talks about how stable and experienced the organization
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
So everybody votes and says, let's move forward.
So the goal would be to be able to get the board to see this, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Well, and if they've got any issues, I mean, I think Samita, I think you could make, let me do it another way. Would anyone like to make a motion to incorporate the changes that we've done today and have that ready for the board at the next meeting? Would anyone like to make that kind of motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, is there a second?
In second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, you can do it.
can see the screen.
Sarah Lynn, was that
So
a,
who's on the bottom?
Yeah.
Raise a hand.
Yes, Sarah Lynn, we saw. Thank you.
I saw a hand, but I
Yes.
wanted to make sure it was at the right time.
It was good.
Yeah, so what the board will
She's
probably see, probably won't be as detailed as what we've done here, because this is the committee that has to get the nuts and bolts right. The board just has to trust that we've done what we're supposed to have
Well,
done.
some of the recommendations that she's been writing down would actually make it a little more streamlined.
So I think we got something great here. I really do. It's a great start.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. Sarah Lynn, are you typing out? Okay, she's typing. Oh, she said I meant to vote yes, but there's a delay in the software transmission.
Well, we took
Took it
your,
as a yes.
yes, we took her hand as a definite yes.
All right.
Oh, great.
Yay.
Okay, shall we go on to staff update?
Yes, and with that, I have more PowerPoint. Hold on.
Thank you all for all your work on that. The team,
That's all.
Yes.
ready to spend some money,
Okay.
give some money away.
Sorry. Come on. There we go. Okay, so staff update. As of today, we have one education specialist who does the Recycle Right Oops tags and some of our other at the cart education and other things for us is we have 4 positions. One came open and it has been posted today. So we've shared that to some of our contacts at Bellarmine and U of L, and we would love it if you all know anyone. It's a part-time job that's mostly just in the early mornings, like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., 16 hours a week. So it's not, definitely not gonna support a family, but it might be good for students or someone just looking for something to do. So
You recall the pay rate?
$19.27 per hour.
Not bad, but we knew that we was gonna be up against trying to find anybody, so try to get that as high as we could.
Yes, so it's open on the LouisvilleKY.gov. There's a spot at the top that says jobs.
We also posted it on socials. If anybody has a social media account they run, please share it.
Yes, thank you. Another part of our staff update, we are sharing that Mayor Greenberg got a Be Cart Smart educational flyer on his cart and was so excited about it at a director's meeting, and we got a photo texted to us. So that could have gone one of 2 ways. So we were just really glad he was happy for the educational work that we're doing. We've done some education programs in the last month or 2. We visited the Manuals Environmental Club. We visited Sacred Heart Model School. We did a training with community center leaders. And then a robotics club came to this very room and Diane taught them all about plastic. So, so we've had some, lots of things. I know, it's very interesting, but, last week we have had an impound, so sort of an enforcement update is this, in this particular case, I found it interesting. Someone had gotten a notice of violation for having construction and trash in their recycle cart. And instead of they got away, their violation was okay because they moved it out of the recycle cart, and then they proceeded to take it a mile away from their house to a dumpster at an apartment complex. And that is, of course, illegal dumping, and then they got their van impounded. And $750 in fines, and so, we just really want people to look use our Recycle Coach app, or by all means, just call us if you aren't sure how to get rid of something correctly.
On a side note to the illegal dumping, we're gonna be having an ordinance change to increase the fine for every time that you're caught. So the fines can go up to $2,500 and a minimum of 30 days impound. But we're doing it, and believe it or not, we've caught some people up to 5 times.
That's the idea of a lot of repeat offenders.
Yes, well, Generally not, but the people that we do catch, some of them, they just don't get the message. You show up at their door, they're like, don't take my vehicle again.
Again.
Quit doing what
Yeah.
you're doing, you know?
Can imagine.
We also have completed this year's ambassador training. Marie F. actually went through the ambassador training, yay. And we have 7 new they're officially ambassadors now. Although we do have tours to continue their education. And some of we already had the Louisville Tool Library tour, and some upcoming ones are Feed Louisville, Smith Creek, West Rock Recycling, of course. Thank you for your monthly tours. And the Outer Loop landfills are going to be scheduled soon. And we've done Water Step before. I don't think that's on the calendar yet. And we were trying to get Goodwill, the second chance outlet thing that Goodwill does, but the staff has changed. We're having a hard time getting a hold of them for a
When
tour.
you do these, you might send it out both to the advisory committee and the board
I
and
was
see if
just
anybody
going
else
to
wants
say that
to.
very same thing.
Yes, we can send you all some links, if anyone is interested. And then, of course, we have our pop-up drop-off events starting on Saturday. So the first one is at Shawnee Park, and that'll be 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday. And the next one is soon after, April 5th at Shelby Campus, U of L's Shelby Campus. So keep your eye out for those. And I put up Louisville Earth Fest as well, yay. Office of Sustainability is leading this and with a lot of different organizations partnering on Saturday, March 29th. So that's coming up. I can't believe it's already like
10 days.
Yeah. That website is there. It's on the sustainabilities part of our Metro's website, and you could even just search ArtFest. That's what I did to find it, and just did a screenshot of the info. Do you want to say anything more?
Yeah, so SWIMS has been a great partner. We're gonna have recycling and composting. We have the food vendors, which is Feed Louisville, provide everything in compostable containers. So we're trying to make it as low waste as possible. And we're gonna send out some education beforehand so people can bring their own water bottles and refill them with Louisville water and try to just build waste education into the event. So thank you all for your partnership, and I know you'll have a table there too.
And lastly, I just thought these icons were funny because PowerPoint did that automatically. But next week we have our in-person board meeting here, and then the next advisory committee will be April 16th here.
Makes us
Say
look like we're in
happy
charge.
Somebody's birthday.
I know.
That's kind of
So it's funny.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
Anyway, that's all I got, and you wanna offer for public?
Right, it's time for public input. Is there any public that would like to input? Hearing none. We already had the announcements of our next meetings and the drop off. Is there anything else to come before the group? Then I'll entertain a motion to dismiss. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Any second? Thank you. All those in favor? We see you, Sarah Lynn. Thank you. Anyway, it was unanimous.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
thank you all. Thanks for being on the WebEx there, guys.
Yeah, really.